Wow, what an episode. I'm Dan with Bart of the Red Hand. Let's go ahead and get into the quick reaction on episode 5 of The Wheel of Time on Amazon, Blood Calls Blood. So I'm going to start doing these videos a little bit differently. Before I start, this is the spoiler-free breakdown. So just a quick note, as I kind of mentioned in the quick reaction video, I actually shot the video you're watching right now first. It was supposed to be the reaction, and for some reason I did a breakdown. So this is the breakdown video. This is a spoiler-free one. And if you haven't seen that quick reaction, go ahead and go back and watch that. To the episode, so no spoilers in this one, not at all for the book series. I'll try to avoid any serious spoilers for the episode. But hey, if you haven't watched episode 5, you probably shouldn't be watching this video, so go watch episode 5, catch up, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so initially my first reaction to this particular episode was, really? 1 month later? Are you kidding me? But after watching it, I'm not that mad at it, honestly, anymore. I kind of understand why they did it. There is a lot of story in the books, and there's no way to tell that much in one season. They got to do some things. It is what it is. It's not my favorite thing in the world, but hey, the episode was actually good despite it. Alright, so for some of these, I'm going to start doing them a little bit different. Instead of going scene by scene down the story, I'm going to follow specific characters down story arcs and just kind of finish them out. We're going to start with Rand and Matt because they actually have the least amount of screen time in this particular episode. So, as we have just seen, they made it to Tarvalon, and here's the kind of quick hit points, if you will. One, they make it to Tarvalon, and Matt is noticing something's up. I think he can see that he's getting a little iffy. You definitely see that even on their walk when a little kid bumps into him and, Matt just snaps at him, almost curses at him. Matt takes care of his younger sister, so it's kind of out of his character to do those sorts of things. Rand obviously sees it. We actually see later on Rand pull his hood down, and you can see that his hair's longer because it's been a full month. They make their way to Tarvalon, and they go to an inn. He says, hey, Tom says the inn's owned by a friend. Little nod to the books there. Not going to get into any spoilers. We'll do that in the second breakdown video. But they go there and, get put up for the night. He talks about how expensive it is. Like one night there is as much as basically a month at the wine spring. So he's kind of shocked by that. I don't think they paid that much because it's Tom's friend. That being said, Rand actually goes up to the library because there's books. One of the few ways of entertainment. They don't have TV and Amazon Prime to watch back in this time. So he goes up there to read books, and we come across a new character, Loyal. I'm not going to touch on him a lot because I can't touch on Loyal a ton without any book spoilers, but he says it out there. He's an Ogier, and from what he's saying, from the words that are coming out of his mouth, you can deduce a few things. One, they live longer because he talks about how quickly humans grow. Two, that he's a little more patient, a little more thoughtful, because he talks about how quick decision making the humans are. He keeps saying, you humans. So obviously he's something else, and he does say that he's an Ogier. Not ogre, Ogier. So keep that in mind. He also is reaching for books when he says, hey, wait for me, I'll go with you to go see the false dragon. I just want to gather my things. And he starts grabbing these big books. So things to keep an eye on later. So as Rand goes out to find Matt, he sees that he's already found a perch on a banister along the route that the false dragon, Logain as we know, is being paraded through the streets. We get to see him being paraded through the streets, and we get to see something very interesting here. Logain looks up at Matt and Rand, smiles, and just starts cackling and laughing madly. Now, by the time he actually gets up to be parallel with them, he's slumped, sitting back in the cage like he was. And it looks almost like that might be some kind of madness or something with Matt. That's what it seems like from the show. So just keep that in mind. He also has something kind of going on with him. We saw with him puking up stuff. And then he has this little conversation with Rand saying, hey, if one of us can channel, let's not let us end up like that. Promise me. And he's like, yeah, okay. And he's like, and you do the same for me too, right? And Matt goes, yeah, sure, whatever. So kind of interesting there how that aspect goes on. A little bit later, Nynaeve, who is also in the White Tower, and we'll get to that in a minute, or at least in Tarvalon, finds Matt and Rand, and she goes to see Matt, and she wants to inspect him because she's the wisdom. She would know about sicknesses. She goes to reach for his tongue, and he looks up and says, "Don't touch me," really quick and like really angry, and then apologizes. She's like, "Get your rest." She talks to Rand and says, "Hey, I'll do what I can. I'll heal what I can." And then when we find Perrin and Egwene, we'll do whatever we need to do to fix this. And that's pretty much all you see of Mat and Rand in this episode. So let's go ahead and go a little bit farther forward and let's start talking about Egwene and Perrin. Perrin is actually, they're still with the Tuatha'an, and there's this good scene where they're walking, and it's actually just Perrin and Aram, and he's talking to Aram, and he's like, "Yeah, if I have to eat turnip curry again, I'll be eating, whatever with the dogs, whatever they're happening to kill, because they had taken down a couple animals." And Egwene comes up and goes, "Oh my goodness, do you see it?" And he's like, "What?" And he's like, "The White Tower." And you look up and you can see the White Tower in the distance. And it just kind of shows the difference between Egwene and Perrin's characters. Perrin is very focused on the here and now. I'm looking here. I'm talking to this one person. That's enough for me. I don't need to see all this other distraction. Whereas Egwene comes up and she's noticing everything. And she's excited to go to the White Tower, which we already kind of knew based off of episode 2 when she was speaking with Moraine or had the interaction with the jewel and making it flash. But now we're really seeing that she has went from "I'm a small Two Rivers girl" to "Oh my goodness, I'm going there to the White Tower, I'm excited." So that was kind of neat. However, like any good story, there's a roadblock to that journey because there's a bunch of White Cloaks that are about to intercept the Tuatha'an. So there's actually a really good scene there when they're like, "Hey, who are you? Where are you going?" We're like, "We're just Tinkers." And Child Valda, Aemon Valda, actually notices Perrin and Egwene. And if you remember, he's like, "I won't forget your guys' faces." He recognizes, "Hey, bring those to me." There's this little kind of standoff between the Tinkers. They all join arms. They won't fight, but they'll try to obstruct, hoping that, somebody won't just be violent to them. And of course, the White Cloaks are like, "Nope, we're turning the light. We're going where the light told us." They put that in our path for a reason. We're going to get them, get out of our way. And they start basically beating the crap out of the Tuatha'an, trying to get to Mat and Perrin. Aram leads them off. Unfortunately, feet aren't as fast as horses. So White Cloaks catch up to them, knock Aram down, start to circle Perrin and Egwene, and the next thing we know, they are captured by the White Cloaks. So for those who haven't read the books, and like I said, I'm not getting any spoilers, the next couple scenes are kind of confusing. Hopefully you've been catching some little hints that they're giving when it comes to the wolves. You had them coming across Perrin and his open wound on his leg. It looks like they were going to be angry, but then they just come up, one of them licked, and then walked off. And then they were chasing them through what we know is now called the Caroline Plains, or Caroline Grass. And as they were going through it, Egwene said it's almost like they drove us or led us to this path that the Tuatha'an are on. So there's something going. They weren't being hunted. There's something going on with them, and you see a little bit more of it in this episode. Long story short, Aemon Valda's already convinced that Egwene's an Aes Sedai, Perrin's her warder, and when he's talking to Egwene, because he has her strapped to a chair and then he has Perrin brought in and put over a rack, she's like, you can, basically accusing her of being an Aes Sedai. She's like, "I can't channel." He's like, "Well, that proves it, because an Aes Sedai cannot lie." So he knows that an Aes Sedai cannot lie. He knows that much, not flat out like that. So clearly the White Cloaks believe that they can't do that. He's like, "But you can channel, so either you channel and I'll kill you and I'll let the boy go, or you don't channel and I'll kill the boy and I'll let you go." That's the dichotomy he puts them in. He walks out and he's like, "You guys decide for yourselves." And that is exactly the kind of conundrum that a White Cloak questioner would leave people in. No doubt in my mind, there's probably people outside that tent listening, trying to hear what they're going to say, trying to hear those things. I mean, you're in a tent. He's a questioner. You think that they're not listening? I bet they are. But we don't see that. But I just wanted to throw that out there. Probably just right outside the tent somewhere listening to hear what their discussion is. That being said, Egwene's like, "No, it's, this, that," and Perrin's like, "It should be me that should die." And at this point, he gives the big, gut punch and explains to Egwene what happened on Beltane during the Trolloc attack to his wife Layla, and how it was actually him thinking it was another Trolloc who swung the axe and killed his own wife. So really, kind of a gut-wrenching scene there, but not as gut-wrenching as seeing Aemon Valda torturing Perrin. Which, yes, I do understand that he started that torturing process before the discussion between Perrin and Egwene, but I just wanted to get that out of there real quick. So what he's doing is he's taking that knife and he's just cutting Perrin's back. And he did 3 down. Now it looks like he's getting ready to do 3 across. But if you notice, every time he does another cut down his back with that knife, Perrin screams and his eyes start to flash yellow or golden. Very interesting there. So he's doing it again. And if you listen in the background, you can hear wolves howling every time that his eyes start to flash gold. So as he's getting cut with the crosshatch marks, that's when Egwene's like, it's not your fault, and one day you'll realize it. Even if it takes the rest of your life, you'll realize it. And she sits back and says, drift, and is trying to embrace the true source very hard. And Imavada, of course, stops and goes, there's the channeling I've been waiting on. And you see her start to have that weave come down to her hand, and she starts to make a little fireball. And then she sends it to Imavada, but it kind of dissipates right before it hits him. And he's saying it's going to be harder to kill me than that. But in her other hand, she still has the power, and you see her break Perrin's bonds. And as he breaks them, he stands up, and his eyes are golden. And you can hear more wolves howling. And this really freaks Imavada out. He's like, what are you, light? Protect me. He drops his dagger, or his knife that he was cutting him with. Egwene grabs one and stabs him in the shoulder, and they both run out to see wolves attacking the White Cloaks. The entire encampment. So they run off, go towards these horses, and one wolf comes up, snarling at them. And Egwene's clearly scared. She's clearly afraid. And Perrin's like, don't worry, it won't hurt it. She's like, how do you know? And it growls, it barks one more time, and then runs past them, and they go on the horses. That's kind of the last we see out of them. So what we're seeing is that, yes, Egwene can definitely channel, and she's getting more and more of a mastery over her channeling, because she's able to do it at will and make it do things she wanted, and without too much delay. And then we also see that Perrin has some kind of a connection to these wolves, and his eyes glow gold, actually kind of wolf-like, and they escape. So it'll be interesting to see what happens later on with them. But let's get to the main story arc of this episode, and that's what's going on in the White Tower. So now we're getting full circle, because if you notice, the opening scene of this episode is a funeral for all those who died at that battle where Logan was gentled at the Aes Sedai camp. And the episode finishes with the funeral for Karini's warder, Stepan. So they sandwich this episode between 2 funerals. Blood calls blood. There's a lot of blood in this episode. Makes sense for the title. Could it be Perrin's blood calling wolves? Could it be, blood at the beginning calling for Stepan's blood at the end of the episode? There's a lot of things you can infer from that, but thought it was kind of interesting to note that I wanted to make a point of saying, this has 2 funerals bookending the rest of this episode. So in that opening scene, you do get to see that picture we have from the promotional video of all the people covered in white that are clearly dead, surrounding a group of people in the center. Wonderful shot. Great to see it happen a little earlier in the episode, or a little earlier in the season. So it does look like a lot of that promotional material was front loaded in the first half of the season. We're just a little bit past the halfway point. So there's still a lot of story to cover. It'll be interesting to see what they do from here. So as they're going, they make it to Tarvalon, and Moiraine is talking to Lan, and she noticed that Nynaeve's been spending every night at the Warder's fire talking with the Warders. So she's plugging him for information. Hey, do you think that she's ready for what she's going to encounter in the White Tower? And he's like, time will tell. They've really built up, and you see this in later scenes, so I don't have to cover too much. They're really talking about how dangerous the White Tower politics are, and how each sister has their own agenda. And I think that even Moiraine mentions that to Nynaeve, like, hey, every woman here has her own agenda, her own goals, and her own secrets. You're really powerful, but these women have honed their craft over decades and, learned how to, bring up their strengths and kind of diminish their weaknesses. And of course, Nynaeve, in her typical stubborn Two Rivers wisdom fashion, goes, if I'm as powerful as you say I am, maybe it's you guys who are underestimating me. You Aes Sedai are underestimating me. Wonderful Nynaeve-like line there. But nonetheless, they kind of put her in the warder's quarters, like, hey, sisters aren't just going to come in here and find you, so this is where you probably need to hide. I'll be back. there's this little banter. She's like, will you even tell me when you find the other four? She's like, I will bring you to them. I have eyes and ears guarding all the entrances. I'll know when they get here. Clearly she doesn't, though. So Nynaeve is kind of left there in the warder's apartments or area as Lan and Moiraine go out and try to handle this thing that is going on. Most of Lan's time is spent with Steppen, as well as the other two warders, Ivan and Maxim. Those Alana's warders. So he's mostly spending time with them, trying to get, Steppen to work through his grief and, hopefully eventually move on past, Karini's death. And he even says warders aren't supposed to outlive their Aes Sedai. Moiraine, on the other hand, is dealing immediately with White Tower politics. People saying, hey, Alana lets her know, hey, Siuan Sanche, the Amarlin seat, is already calling for us to meet in the hall tomorrow to answer for what happened with the Logain situation. She's out for blood, so there's a storyline there. She has this interaction with Liandrin, where Liandrin's like, hey, quite a find with Nynaeve. Kind of implying that she's going to try to recruit her to the Red. Moraine's like, her first big show of the power was her healing everybody, so, the Yellow Sisters will probably take her. So maybe the Yellow Sisters are healers. That's what they're implying with that. But nonetheless, there's that White Tower politics there, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I'm very interested to see the Amarlin seat in the Hall of the Tower, which I think will be in the next episode, honestly. A couple other moments that you want to pay attention to, in my opinion. Steppen did go to Nynaeve and said, hey, do you still have that tea you gave me to help me sleep? She's like, yeah, here you go. There's this joke about, is it really made out of goat's tongue? She's like, no, it's a plant. Here you go. And that's right before he goes and takes the ring, Karini's ring, to this large fire, and around it is this molten gold, and he puts the ring in there. If you notice, the stone is already out of the ring when he does that, leading me to believe that maybe they keep those stones to pass on to other sisters, or maybe it's just, hey, they took the stone out of the setting because it wouldn't melt and it would mess up that whole gold repository, if you will. But he took the ring back to the gold so that it can be made into a new ring for new sisters, is my guess. It's probably a very symbolic nature thing. Nonetheless, that's what happens there. There's another scene with Steppen that I thought was really interesting, where he has a smudge stick, a sage bundle that he's burning, and Lan's like, not many people, hold ceremonies to ward off the Forsaken. Who are you warding off? And he says, I'm warding off Ishamael, the father of lies. And you see all these little figurines that he has. And the book readers can probably, you're like, yeah, that's that one, that's that one, that's that one. But he specifically shows which one is Ishamael, and he's talking about the Forsaken. So that's going to be something that's going to come up later in the series. Just keep an eye out on that, because Lan's like, hey, these are the guys that, sold their souls to the Dark One thousands of years ago. Sold their souls eternally to the Dark One. And then there's the big things towards the end. Lan goes to talk to Steppen and talk to him about, maybe becoming Alana's warder. He's talking about it again. He had talked about it earlier in the episode. And Steppen seems like, maybe it won't be that bad. It might work. And he gives Lan some tea, and he's like, they have this little discussion. Then it cuts away. So as day breaks, you get to see Lan sitting there, and he's asleep, and he's got that little cup of tea still in his hand. And that's when I realized, Steppen dosed him with that goat's tongue tea, made him fall asleep. Because Lan was there as a friend, but I also think as a warder, he had a duty to kind of be on watch to make sure that Steppen didn't do anything to himself, which is what ends up happening. He looks up, realizes that there's that parcel of Nynaeve's herbs, looks up, notices one of the daggers are gone, and immediately runs towards what I think they actually called the entrance to the Hall of the Tower, where those 4 warder statues were standing guard. And you see Steppen sitting there in front of them, and you realize that he had completed suicide, unfortunately. And that leads us to that whole funeral scene at the end. Now, the funeral scene at the end is actually really heart-wrenching, especially for someone like me. Knowing Lan's character and everything, seeing, that raw emotion come out. I mean, look at me. He's been stoic throughout this entire series. He barely smiles. He barely laughs. He doesn't talk a lot. And they left it up to him. Like, touch him. Feel your grief. Let us release our grief. So seeing him have that raw emotional outburst, really, it gave me the feels. It gave me, chills up my spine. all that stuff. It was a great scene. I thought it was effective at showing the closeness that community in the tower has. Not just, as Karini's empty horse is going through Tarvalon, you see the people going, oh my goodness, his sister died. So there's that aspect of it. But, this with one of the warders doing that, and just seeing that it's the community's tight there, even if they have their own schemes and plots, they kind of stick together. So that was it, especially the warders. So that was a very good thing to see. And that's kind of where it ends. It ends on that cliffhanger, because this is the next day. So there's supposed to be, Moraine, Alana, my guess from seeing some of the promotional other stuff, Leander, are all going to go see the Amerlin seat in the Hall of the Tower and face her wrath. Alana's talking about, hey, she's out for blood this time. So it's going to be really interesting to see where this goes after that. Overall, I give this episode a solid 8. Maybe 7. Somewhere in between there. We'll say 7.5. Is it book accurate? No. No, it is not. There are scenes that allude to book accuracy, but they're not book accurate. Nothing really here is really book accurate. But is it like right next to it, telling kind of the same story just in a slightly different way? Yes. And I think that's what we have to look at with this series. We're not getting the books regurgitated to us. We're not going to get the books regurgitated to us. There might be a scene or two here or there that is almost exactly like the books, or they may use something in the book and go, okay, well, that's cool. This happened in these 3 places. Let's just take that, condense it, and we'll move it all to this one place so that we don't have to spend 3 separate episodes on this whole journey. We're going to spend it here, tell the same story, but with less travel, less, of that stuff. Is it hurting a little bit of character development? Yeah, of course it is. You're never going to get as much character development in a TV series as you do in written word. Because written word, you can get things like inner monologue, what a person's thinking to themselves, how they're observing the world. It's really hard to get that in the visual media. So, overall, I'm enjoying the series. Maybe I'm looking through it through a little bit more rose-tinted glasses than some of the other fans are, but, hey, reality's reality. You're never going to get a book series that is the books right there in front of your face. It's never going to happen. Unless it's like a 3-book series and they make it into 7 seasons. That's the only way you're going to get that, and then it's going to be kind of anticlimactic. So overall, I'm happy so far with the series. I hope you are too. Before I go, be sure to click that like, subscribe, and bell icon so you're notified whenever I come out with new content, which is going to be a few times a week now. I've got a plan going forward on how I'm going to put out videos. The night of a video of a episode, I'm going to try to put out one of these quick reaction videos that are spoiler free, so that, hey, you don't have to read the books, but if you just watch the episode and you want to see somebody else talk about it and kind of give it, hey, here's that video. It's supposed to be shorter. Then on Saturdays, that's when I'll do my breakdown that has the spoilers, go scene by scene, looks for nitnoid details, how they differ from the book, how are they the same. That's my longer ones. I'm going to try to keep right around 30 minutes, 20 to 30 minutes if I can. Then on Sundays, when I'll come out with a full spoiler breakdown that has all the little Easter eggs, nods to the books, what's really different. That'll come out on Sunday. Monday, just straight Easter eggs. Just looking for little Easter eggs that, hey, we didn't see, that are little small nods to the books, to the fandom, those types of things. And then, Tuesdays, maybe I'll do a short or something of that nature. And then Thursdays, we'll have the theory going forward, theories based off of this episode and where we think the series is going, or what might happen in the next episode. We'll keep it as Theory Thursday. So until then, have a wonderful one, and I'll see you later.